I mean, this is corruption. I don't know how else to explain it. If this was going on in Detroit, they would be investigated. The FBI would be there. But because it's lily white Ann Arbor, we can do this in daylight. I am sickened by this. That's all I'm going to say. Corruption.
In March 2021, city staff recommended that City Council approve a $1.3 million contract for water main work and resurfacing at Dunmore, Waverly, Weldon, and Hartford. Staff recommended this contract be awarded to DePonio Contracting. Ahead of the meeting, Councilmember Iyer and Councilmember Redina indicated their interest in awarding the contract to a different company. At the council meeting, city staff offered explanation of the formal process they use to receive and review bids and contracts in order to make an informed recommendation.
What we do in the engineering department is we review the bid tabs, we review the unit prices, we look for mathematical errors. We look for unbalancing of a bid that might be something that where a contractor might be trying to take advantage of the city on that. And then the other thing that we look at is with new contractors that we haven't worked before, we check their references.
To start, the unit develops the specifications, which are included in the ITV document and plans. The ITV document and any applicable plans are then published publicly on Mitten and BidNet and the city's website with deadlines for questions and when bid responses are due. Written questions from bidders are received and responded to publicly via an addendum, which is published on Mitten and the city's website. At the bid due date and time, bids are opened publicly by purchasing, and the bid values are read and recorded by the requesting unit on a bid tabulation sheet.
I move the substitute resolution that I submitted to Clerk Beaudry to award the construction contract to Bailey Excavating Incorporated.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Redina.
Councilmember Redina defended the substitution of one contractor over another.
So I'm not comfortable with the approving the previous one, and I am fully supportive of the substitute. It's not simply we're picking one versus the other. We're just picking a replacement. The way that this process would ultimately work is if this body does agree that the initial bid is non-responsive, then the bid would go to the next lowest responsible bidder, which is the resolution that you have before you as the substitute.
The irregularity of this was addressed by a city attorney.
It would be prudent to take action on the resolution that's pending as part of the agenda before addressing the substitute. It's a action on the proposed resolution to award the contract, and if not, the reasons for not approving it.
Ultimately, a majority of council followed the lead of council members Iyer and Redina in rejecting the staff-recommended contract with DePonio and awarding it instead to Bailey Excavating. In July 2021, council discussed a new policy for awarding city contracts, best value purchasing. This new policy would be an amendment to the city charter, requiring a ballot question and approval by voters. City Council approved a ballot question for voters to consider in November 2021. Ahead of the November ballot question, more than $35,000 was spent in promoting the best value purchasing policy. The campaign committee, People for Responsible Contracting, was funded entirely by labor union PACs. For more information about labor union PAC money in local elections, I made another video on this topic, which you can find at the link in the description of this video. The November 2021 ballot question for best value purchasing was approved with 78% of the vote. Voter turnout was 17%. Only 13% of registered voters in Ann Arbor approved best value purchasing. In February 2022, council members Iyer and Redina again worked to substitute one company for another on a staff-recommended contract.
This is a large contract. This is a lot of money that we're spending. And we heard very loud and clear from residents that they didn't want us to just go with the cheapest bidder. They wanted us to evaluate quality, safety, job performance, on a whole range of issues to ensure that we are getting the best value for our money.
And we do have a mandate from the residents telling us the types of ways that they want us to evaluate these contracts. And And in particular, I just don't think that this is one that we should feel comfortable moving forward with, knowing what we know and knowing what the voters of Ann Arbor have asked of us. And so
Council considered a $1.3 million contract for water main work and resurfacing of 3rd Street between Madison and Mosley between 3rd and Main. Staff recommended awarding the contract to E.T. McKenzie, but Iyer and Redina promoted Bailey Excavating. Coincidentally, Bailey Excavating is the same company that Iyer and Redina favored in March 2021. Council members explained their concerns about E.T. McKenzie and why they preferred Bailey.
I have serious concerns about this contractor. There are 4 serious OSHA violations by this contractor in the past few years.
I'm worried about the issues being raised tonight, particularly if it means that there's considerable safety concerns. I would think that if we would engage a contractor who doesn't prioritize safety and have serious OSHA violations as being something that we should be collectively concerned about.
You know, the OSHA violations, anyone can look them up. There's a public database that anyone can access. This particular contractor had twice as many as the next lowest bidder. And the next lowest bidder also much more closely fits our best value criteria.
Again, due to the irregularity of this approach, city attorneys had to offer special advice.
Council would have to identify a basis on which to reject the recommendation that's been presented to council.
The contract was ultimately postponed to March 7, 2022. At that meeting, a representative from E.T. McKenzie spoke at public comment. MLive confirmed the facts of his remarks.
Numerous comments were made in the February 22nd council meeting regarding E.T. McKenzie Company that are factually incorrect. We provided the required background information in our ITB response that establishes that E.T. McKenzie Company is a safe and reputable contractor. We responded to the responsible questionnaire truthfully and completely. After reviewing the proposals by alternate contractors, it is apparent that in several instances, critical safety information was either omitted or misrepresented in their responses. It was stated that we have twice as many violations as the next lowest bidder, which is not correct. In addition, we have not had 4 serious OSHA violations in the past 5 years that was previously stated.
A majority of council was adamant about favoring Bailey's Excavating, despite pushback.
when we deem it necessary and appropriate, council ultimately has the power to accept and reject bids.
This is a normal part of the process that just doesn't get used very often at all. And I echo the concerns, or rather the desire to have an outcome that is more in the best interest of the city as I see it.
What's our legal exposure if we received a document showing that Bailey Excavating falsified one of their documents, and now we, with that information, are going ahead and granting them this contract on an exception basis?
We, as council, have the ability to make a judgment call. There's nothing improper happening here. This is a values call.
I mean, this is corruption. I don't know how else to explain it. If this was going on in Detroit, they would be investigated. The FBI would be there. But because it's lily white Ann Arbor, we can do this in daylight.
It's possible for us to disagree around policy and not move to sort of claims of corruption. There isn't corruption, and I don't think we should throw those claims around.
The bid process is a very specific process. It has nothing to do with policy. It has very little to do with values. You go through a very specific process. And when you don't do that, you are engaging in a corrupt process. Corruption is binary. It's either corrupt or it's not corrupt. It's not how you're feeling on a given day.
In a 6-5 vote, City Council rejected the staff recommended contract with E.T. McKenzie and awarded it instead to Bailey Excavating. For more information about Ann Arbor City Council, visit A2Council.com. Like and subscribe if you want to be alerted to more updates like this one.